Let's talk about one of the most incredible pieces of natural engineering in your entire body, the shoulder. It's a true masterpiece of mobility, a joint that gives us a range of movement that is just, well, astonishing.
I mean, just think about it for a second. The shoulder's whole design is about one thing: freedom. It lets you place your hand pretty much anywhere in a full sphere around you, only limited by how long your arm is. Seriously, no other joint in the body even comes close to that kind of range. And yet, this is the exact joint that gives so many of us trouble, right? You hear about it all the time: pain, pinching, stiffness. So what's the deal? What is the catch that makes this marvel of mobility so vulnerable? That is the big question we are going to unpack right now. To really get why shoulders have problems, we first have to appreciate their absolutely brilliant, but let's say compromised design. It really all boils down to a fundamental trade-off between two things that are constantly at odds with each other. And here it is, the big trade-off: mobility versus stability. See, your shoulder has only one single bony connection to the rest of your skeleton. That's what gives it all that freedom. But the price you pay for that freedom is a real lack of built-in stability. Think about your hip. It's a deep, secure socket. The shoulder? Not so much. It relies almost completely on a whole team of muscles and other soft tissues to hold everything in place. Let's zoom in on that main joint, the glenohumeral joint. The source material calls it an incongruous ball and socket, which is just a fancy way of saying the parts don't fit together snugly. And the best way to picture this is the classic analogy. It's like a golf ball sitting on a golf tee. The ball, the head of your arm bone, is way bigger than the shallow little tee it sits on. Now, this design is amazing for movement, but you can immediately see how easily that golf ball could just slip right off the tee. So, if the bones aren't doing the job, what is? Well, it's this whole support team of soft tissues. The star player, for sure, is the rotator cuff. This is a group of 4 muscles that wrap around the joint, and their whole job is to actively pull that golf ball down onto the tee, creating what we call dynamic stability. Then you've got the labrum, which is like a little rubber lip that makes the tee a bit deeper. Even your biceps and triceps help out. And crucially, you have all these muscles that move the shoulder blade, the tee itself, to keep it perfectly positioned underneath the ball as you move your arm. It's this constant, incredible balancing act. Okay, so what happens when that balancing act starts to fail, or the space around the joint gets a little crowded? That's when we run into trouble. Let's start with one of the most common complaints of all: impingement, that feeling of something getting pinched deep inside your shoulder. Impingement syndrome is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a space problem. When you lift your arm over your head, those rotator cuff tendons and a little fluid-filled sac called a bursa have to glide through this super narrow tunnel. If that space gets smaller for any reason, those tissues get squeezed, compressed, and really irritated. And that's why it tends to hurt most when you're reaching overhead. And what's really fascinating here is that your own personal anatomy can actually set you up for this. The roof of that little tunnel is a part of your shoulder blade called the acromion. And believe it or not, it comes in different shapes. Some people have a nice, flat type 1 acromion with plenty of room, but other people are just born with a curved or even a hooked acromion, and that hook can dramatically shrink the available space, making it way more likely that you're going to pinch those tissues. All right, let's switch gears from pinching to another really common problem. This one isn't about compression. It's about the joint getting progressively, well, stuck. We're talking about the long, frustrating journey of a frozen shoulder. The official medical term is adhesive capsulitis, and that name actually tells you everything you need to know. The problem isn't with the muscles or the bones, it's with the joint capsule, the little fibrous bag that surrounds the whole joint. For reasons we often don't even know, this capsule gets inflamed, it gets thick, and it develops these dense, sticky adhesions. It literally starts to glue the joint together from the inside, which, as you can imagine, severely restricts your movement. And man, it is a slow and frustrating process that unfolds in these really distinct stages. It just starts with some pain, but then it moves into the freezing stage, where the pain gets more intense and you start losing motion. Then you hit the frozen stage, where the pain might back off a bit, but your shoulder is just incredibly stiff. And finally, after many, many months, you begin this super slow thawing process. This whole journey can easily take up to 2 years, sometimes even longer, to fully resolve. So whether we're talking about impingement or a frozen shoulder or even coming back from surgery, what does that path to recovery actually look like? Well, the great news is that rehab follows some pretty clear logical principles that build on each other. So, phase 1 is all about protection. The goals here are simple, but they are absolutely vital. First, you've got to get the pain under control and calm down that muscle guarding that happens automatically. At the very same time, you need to gently maintain whatever mobility you still have, but, and this is key, without causing pain. This helps stop the joint from getting even stiffer and keeps more of those nasty adhesions from forming. And here's a fantastic pro tip right from the source material. A really common early exercise is the pendulum swing. But so many people do it wrong. They try to swing their arm using their shoulder muscles. Nope. The whole point is to completely relax your arm and let it hang like a rope. And then you initiate the movement by gently swaying your body. It's a tiny detail, but getting the technique right makes all the difference. Okay, so once that initial, really painful phase is over, the goals start to shift. Now the focus moves to actively and carefully starting to increase your joint mobility. This is also when you have to start correcting any funky movement patterns you might have developed, like shrugging your shoulder up to your ear, and begin rebuilding proper muscle control and performance. And that brings us to what might be the most empowering part of all this, the big picture ideas for building and keeping a healthy, resilient shoulder for the long haul. Let's just boil it all down to these 3 keys. Number 1, posture is paramount. If you're slouched with rounded shoulders, you are fundamentally changing how your shoulder works, and you're just setting yourself up for problems. Number 2, balance is key. You need this perfect harmony between the big, powerful mover muscles like your deltoid and those small, precise stabilizer muscles of the rotator cuff. And finally, synchrony is strength. Your shoulder blade and your arm have to move in a perfect rhythm. For every 2 degrees your arm lifts, your shoulder blade should move 1 degree. That rhythm is essential for safe and efficient movement. At the end of the day, the story of the shoulder is a story of motion. It is a joint that is literally designed to move. But that incredible, freeing design requires our support. It needs good posture, it needs balanced muscles, and it needs mindful movement. So the final question is really for you. How are you going to support its brilliant design?